So here are all of my threes, my 3 number 3s side by side. I am quite spoiled, but look at how different just all 3 of these dolls are. And again, keep in mind, they're all number 3s. I know that for certainty, but look at just how diverse and how different they are. Now, after the head was removed, I went ahead and just went in with a Q-tip, a very thin, fine Q-tip, dunked it in some rubbing alcohol. I use about 70% rubbing alcohol, and I did a surface cleaning on the entire face. Hey everyone, it's Ian here, and Jimmy, and welcome back to our Vintage Barbie channel. Today, I am super excited because I have here my third, and probably my final, number 3 Ponytail Barbie that I will be adding to my collection. For some bizarre reason, I have always wanted to have 3 number 3s in my collection and 4 number 4s in my collection. Those are my 2 favorite versions of the Vintage Ponytail Barbie. She was a really good price on eBay. She is a brunette, which I do not have a brunette number 3, and I've really wanted one for quite some time now. So I'm super excited to add her to my collection. And of course, I want to unbox her on camera today as well. The lady who sold me this doll was also incredibly kind. She said it was really hard to part with this doll because it was her mother's, and based off of our conversation, it seems like sadly her mother has probably passed away, but I assured her that this doll will be in very good hands, which it will. I'm crazy about these Ponytail Barbies. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get her out of the box. All right, she is packaged up very nicely. Ooh, she popped right out. Slid right out. Now, I was informed that her bathing suit is pretty much in shambles, which it is. She's got one of her little boobies hanging out, so I'm just gonna try to cover up to the best of my ability. So, look at this gal. She is so awesome. And the reason why I wanted to get her was not only did I really desperately want a brunette number 3 ponytail, but this one has actually retained quite a bit of her original skin tone. The seller informed me that her mother had this doll stored in a trunk for many years, and that might explain why her skin is a little darker. I think it actually has retained more of the natural pigments that these number 3s originally had. She does have a lot of surface dirt on her, and you know, that is just normal from storage. She is going to clean up so nicely, and she is already a very beautiful doll. But I promise you, once I am done giving her a little bit of a cleanup, she's gonna look stunning. But the one thing I did want to note about this gal is, unfortunately, she does have a little bit of the green ear, but that is okay. It's very minimal. And what I'm gonna do right now is I'm actually very, very carefully gonna just pull these earrings out. So we do have staining in the earlobes. That is totally normal. Unfortunately, the metal posts, they oxidize the vinyl in these dolls over time. And then what ends up happening is these dolls get stained. But that's okay. And since she's a number 3 and her vinyl is a little different, I will not be treating her green ear. Now that might sound a little odd because I know in previous videos I talk a lot about treating green ear and that's something that I do fairly often. But since she is a number 3 and she is a very valuable doll, I want to preserve her as much as possible, and I do not want to put any harsh chemicals on her. I will still be doing a surface cleaning with some rubbing alcohol just to get some of that green grime residue out of there. So the one thing I also noticed about this gal is she still has her original top knot, which is great. But because she is such an old doll, you might notice that her ponytail is a little bit more loose. Now, the reason why the ponytail is loose but still together is this piece of hair that was coiled around is still intact. However, the elastic that was once inside has disintegrated probably decades ago. I'm gonna get some of my orthodontic elastic and secure this ponytail because since she's a number 3 and since she's a pretty valuable doll, I want to preserve her as much as possible. I don't want to take her hair down and go through the hassle of having to redo it. So I'm gonna secure this existing knot, and then what I probably will do is just uncoil the hair that's wrapped around it and redo that component. But then that way I still have the original top knot exactly where it was when she was created in the factory. This one also has those really beautiful reddish orange lips, which I really love. And her face paint has held up very nicely. I actually don't see any paint rubs. She still has her iconic chocolate brown eyeshadow, which you will only find on the number 3s. She's just all around a beautiful doll, and I am so happy that I purchased her. So without further ado, let's go ahead and cut to some footage of me cleaning her up, and then once I'm done, you will get to see her side by side with my other 2 number 3 Ponytail Barbies. All right, well, we're back. It's been about 2 weeks, and she is finally all done. I am so excited to show her off, so without further ado, here she is. I think she turned out absolutely gorgeous, and I have her dressed in the 1963 outfit called Party Date. I absolutely love this dress, and I think it looks beautiful on her. Now, I did try really hard to document the entire restoration process, but if I'm being completely honest with you, that put a lot of pressure on me to be on camera while I was restoring this doll. I did do some voiceover, but it just didn't turn out very good. So instead of showing you everything, I'm just gonna walk you through the process, and where appropriate, I will inject some of the footage that I recorded. So starting off with all of these dolls, the most important thing is to do a really good surface cleaning. This gal had a lot of grime and dirt on her, especially in her face, and that's very typical with these dolls. Generally, most of them have been in storage somewhere and they're over 60 years old, so it's just inevitable that they're gonna be a little dirty. So when I clean my dolls, I really love to use a very soft bristle brush. So I just use the brush, I lather some Dawn dish soap on it, I get the doll wet first beforehand in the sink, and then I just very lightly scrub her. This is a great method to get the surface dirt off of the doll. It's relatively safe. Just be sure not to scrub too hard. I did do this twice. I lathered her once, rinsed her off, lathered her again, rinsed her off again, and then I did go ahead and let her air dry in my windowsill. But I will say this, if you live in a very hot climate, if you live in a very humid climate, be very careful where you dry your doll. You don't want her in direct sunlight because that does potentially damage the vinyl. Now, because this gal did have a little bit of green ear, I decided to go in and do a little bit of a deeper surface cleaning. As I already previously mentioned, I did not want to treat her for green ear because she's a very old and very valuable doll, and sometimes those chemicals that you can use to treat green ear can really damage your dolls. Now, she does still have the green ear staining, but you would never notice that with the little pearl earrings that I have put in her ears. Now, I do always generally recommend a really good surface cleaning on the exterior, but the interior is a good idea as well if you trust yourself with this process. Unfortunately, that does require moving the head of the doll, and I cannot stress enough that you have to be very careful doing this. Do not, I repeat, do not just simply pull the head off of the doll. That is a recipe for a disaster. This vinyl is old and no longer pliable. If you were to just simply pull the head off of the doll, you have a very high risk of causing a very large neck split, and that will immediately devalue the doll and probably leave you heartbroken. It is always crucial to heat the head before removing it. Now, the safest and best method to do this is to get a kettle or an electric kettle, plug it in, heat up the water until it boils, Pour it into a microwave safe bowl and let it sit for about 1 to 2 minutes. Once the water has cooled, you can take the doll and very carefully submerge her entire head into the water and keep it there for about 30 seconds, pull it out, and feel the head. If the head is now soft and squishy, it's generally a pretty safe bet that you'll be able to take it off with no problem. If it does not come off easily, put the head back in the water for another 30 seconds and repeat that step until the head is soft and squishy. I cannot stress this enough. Sometimes the vinyl is very hard, so you might have to do a couple of tries in order to safely remove the head. For me, her head came off relatively smoothly, and I was able to start doing my surface cleaning. Now, after the head was removed, I went ahead and just went in with a Q-tip, a very thin, fine Q-tip, dunked it in some rubbing alcohol. I use about 70% rubbing alcohol, and I did a surface cleaning on the entire face. I think this is a great way to remove excess dirt and residue. However, you need to be very, very careful with this step because if you suspect that your doll has been repainted, the chances are incredibly high that the rubbing alcohol will peel the paint right off. If she still has her factory paint, that should not be an issue, but still be very cautious with this step. Since I've been collecting Barbie for many years now, I have a very trained eye to be able to tell what doll is a factory painted doll and what doll is a repaint. I knew for a fact that she had her factory original paint, so I had no problem personally going in there and doing a deep surface cleaning with the rubbing alcohol. I think this is a great method for just removing any further staining and dirt. It really cleaned her up nicely. It got a lot of the grime off of her. The green ear can be pretty gross. Hers was very minor and it cleaned up very nicely with the rubbing alcohol. The next thing I did, which I think is really important to further prevent the green ear from spreading, is to carefully go in with your Q-tip dipped in alcohol and to carefully clean the interior of the earlobes. And so what I do for this process is I just very, very carefully rub the inside portion of that area, pull out the Q-tip, and if I see that it's dirty, that's a pretty good sign that there's still junk in there that needs to be cleaned. I also forgot to mention it's very crucial when you put the head back on the doll to repeat the same step of warming it up before you place it back on. For the next step, I had the opportunity of giving this gal new pearl earrings. Now, I can't stress this enough. The last thing that you want to do is to put those original metal earrings back into her ears. It's those metal posts that cause the green ear to start in the first place, so we want to avoid putting metal back into the doll at all costs possible. What I like to do is I like to go on Amazon.com and buy pearl spray bouquets. They are little bouquets of miniature pearls, and what I do is just carefully go in with some pliers and carefully cut them down to the size of a doll earring. This is a great hack and a very inexpensive way to make hundreds, I kid you not, hundreds of earrings for your dolls. It's safe, the posts are plastic, and the best part is it will not further the spread of green ear. Now, the last step, which I really attempted to film, which was a total disaster with my camera and my setup, was the hair component. So I'm gonna try my best to discuss this with you in as much detail as possible, and maybe in a future video, I will share a tutorial on this in greater detail. Now, these ponytail Barbies on the sides of their hair typically have a strand of hair that is much longer than the rest of the hair. That is the strand of hair that you will use to coil around the elastic ponytail, because these ponytail Barbies have a very signature look to them. You don't see any of the elastic holding the ponytail. What you see holding the ponytail is actually additional hair of the doll. So that is achieved essentially by taking that longer strand of hair, and once you have the ponytail in the style that you want, You just take that long piece of hair and very carefully coil it once or twice around the elastic. Now, you could just tuck it in if you have the small hands to be able to do that, but I have fairly big hands, so that's difficult for me. So what I actually do is I get some dental floss and a needle, and what I do is I tie it at the very end of that strand of hair. And then once I have gone around the hair a couple of times, I very carefully feed the needle through the elastic and pull it out, and I pull it very carefully. And then what that does is it just secures and coils this piece of hair very nicely around the elastic. The cluster curls were a lot of work, but what I did was buy very small miniature bobby hairpins, and I coiled them around sections of the back of the ponytail. And then I actually used relatively large clips to clip them all in place. And I got them as even as I possibly could. And then I very carefully boil washed those curls. And I did that by, once again, using my handy dandy electric tea kettle and just very carefully poured that boiling hot water on that portion of the hair only. And then I let it air dry in my windowsill for a couple of days. After that process, the curls were very tight and very nice. And to finish it all off, I got a little piece of black elastic that could blend into the back of her ponytail, put that in to secure the end of the ponytail. And then I very carefully took a needle and thread with some black embroidery thread and looped it in a couple times to tightly secure this ponytail in the back of her head. Now, as I had mentioned during the unboxing, this number 3 actually has a much darker skin tone than most of my other number 3s. And I'm gonna get out my other number 3 right now. I actually have 2, but I'm gonna just show you this one. And I'm gonna show them to you side by side so you can see in greater detail what I'm talking about. Now, if you have watched any of my previous videos, I have mentioned this before, but I will go ahead and repeat this if you're a new viewer. These number 3 ponytail Barbies were made with a formula that typically did not retain the original skin pigments. This girl is a very good example of just that. She is pretty much ghostly white. She is one of the palest Barbie dolls I have ever seen, and by far the palest doll that I have in my collection. But just know, when she was originally in the market in 1960 in the toy shelves, she did not look like this. This happened over the course of many years where her skin faded to this very light color, and that is due to a flaw in the vinyl. But this number 3 that I purchased and unboxed for you on this video is definitely the exception. I am in awe when comparing her to this other doll, how much of her original skin tone is still there. So here are all of my 3s, my 3 number 3s side by side. I am quite spoiled, but look at how different just all 3 of these dolls are. And again, keep in mind, they're all number 3s. I know that for certainty, but look at just how diverse and how different they are. I think this is the number 1 reason why I love collecting the number 3 Barbies so much, because they have such a wide variety in not only their skin tone, but their facial screening and even their hair as well. Even when I look at these 2 blondes side by side, their shade of hair is a little different, as well as their facial screenings. I had so much fun today unboxing my 3rd and hopefully my final number 3 ponytail Barbie. They're really starting to break the bank over here, so I gotta stop. But I had a lot of fun unboxing her, and I had a lot of fun showing her off. I hope that you found my restoration tips helpful. I'm not really super focused on restorations for this channel, but let me know if you would like to know more in greater detail, because I will be happy to share more tips with you, and I will be sure to link all of the supplies, including those pearl spray bouquets that I use, in the video description box below, so that you can purchase those items if you want to make your own pearl beads as well. Thank you so much for watching my video today. If you enjoy my content over here at the Nostalgic Toy Archive, please consider subscribing to my channel. My name is Ian, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.